session is Tomorrow's Leaders, Youth as a Force in Politics. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage the panelists for the session. Shri Ritesh Pandey, Member of Parliament, Lok Sabha. Shri Tejasvi Surya, Member of Parliament, Lok Sabha. And Shri Nivedith Alva, former General Secretary and Spokesperson, Karnataka Pradesh Congres Committee. To moderate this discussion, may I invite on stage Ms. Palki Sharma, Executive Editor, WION.
Good afternoon, everyone. India is a young country. We talk about the young participating in politics, and on the session today are three young leaders who we hope are charting a new course for Indian politics. If I could start with you, Mr. Pandey. What is a youth leader?
Right. Well, I think at the moment a youth leader is generally who's speaking out that are issues that are critical to students, issues that are critical to the nation, and they're generally coming out of student movements that are currently happening, and also somebody who's wary of Indian politics, whether it comes to religion or caste, and from that viewpoint, the issues that are currently relating to the people of India.
That's the profile. Do you fit it?
Sorry, I can't hear you too well.
He's given us a profile of what a youth leader is. Who talks about jobs, youth issues, doesn't talk about religion, talks about the future of the country.
Well, I partly agree with what Ritesh has said. The very outset, Ritesh, welcome to Bengaluru.
Thank you.
So, I think, broadly speaking, young people, whichever organization they become a part of, youth generally represents change. Youth generally challenge status quos. They want to look at old problems with a fresh set of eyes, and they generally bring in dynamism and fresh energy to wherever they go. In that sense, I think even in Indian politics, young political leaders, young political activists, especially those without baggages of dynasty, people who come from student activism, like Ritesh said, or through the ranks of a political organization, or achievers in any other field who would have got an opportunity in a political party, they bring in that kind of dynamism, new energy, and that zeal and zest which only young people, because of their age, can bring. So I think I would just want to add that dimension to the profile that Ritesh mentioned.
Do you endorse student activism? Because the powers that be, the governments of the day, any government for that matter, tends to brand student activists as either proxies or misguided, or they're not taken very well.
Insofar as youth in politics and youth activism as such, even student activism as such is concerned, as a product of a student movement or a student organization myself, I would always vote in support of active participation of students in political issues. However, I would also want to say a word of caution to all the students and young people, irrespective of ideologies and political affiliations, that there is always a risk of being used as cannon fodder by political parties, again, irrespective of whichever political complexion. So being wary of that and being conscious of that, young people must take positions on political issues. Most of the political movements, even in India and outside of the world, outside of India, has seen young people leading political movements, which is why it is imperative to encourage student movements and political
So
activism
should
among young
governments
people.
engage with those people who may be used as fodder by political forces, or should they dismiss them as whatever is being said in the headlines, tukde tukde or whatever else is making
I think all governments at all points in time has engaged with political leaders, young, old alike. It's a part of any healthy democracy, and that tradition will continue, and we all should ensure it continues.
Is that a tradition, Nivedith, Alva? Because not just this government or this party in power at the center, right from Atal Bihari Vajpayee, leaders have said that students should focus on studies. Politics can come later. But most leaders have come from student movements the world over. So why are we wary of students taking political positions and even protesting?
First of all, to give it a little bit of perspective, India today has 600 million youth, right? So under the age of 25. So first of all, I mean, to understand that figure, it's very important to know that all political parties cannot afford anymore to say that the youth are ignored. In fact, in the discussion we were having earlier, is that the youth wing and the women's wing is, are separate entities in every party. Whereas if you look at the age group today of our country, the youth wing should probably be one of the main focuses. It should be the main party, right? Because unless you're able to communicate with voters over the age of 18 and explain to them what your party is ready to do, you have no future in electoral politics, right? The second part of your question is definitely one thing which we have seen over the last 3-4 months is that the youth cannot be curtailed in our country, right? Over the past, we have seen the leadership is much older. People who have been in power have been much older, and now clearly you see younger people ready to challenge the status quo, ready to say our time has come, ready to say that we are not okay. Again, I'm not talking about any particular situation. I'm saying because you spend time in rural areas, it may be a panchayat election, it may be a Zilla panchayat election, it may be a municipality election. You always see younger people coming forward, you see women coming forward. And the other thing is also a lot in the political process, when you talk about youth, for some reason it's only men. Political parties, when you talk about youth, they're referring to men. They're not referring to women, don't fall into that broad category. So it cannot be ignored, and they are going to come out of student movements. They are going to come out of student organizations. They are going to come out from those type of things. You cannot curtail that anymore.
Yes, but is there an appetite? Are we welcoming of that? When we say that young people should come out and vote and they should actively participate and consider politics as a career option, are we willing to then listen to them as well? There was a time when Sitaram Yechuri famously read his Charter of Demands with Indira Gandhi next to him. Do you see that happening in this day and age? Will leaders...
Currently, it's very difficult. As Tejasvi just pointed out, that the end of dynastic politics is coming down. I frankly believe we're still very far away from it. You can look at very simple examples like Kanhaiya Kumar. Okay, Jignesh is maybe somebody that went out because he fought from a reserve seat and there is a relative following there. I feel that, he sort of won there. But essentially, you need to have some sort of recognition. In India, very famously, there is hero worship. And, if you belong to a certain community and you have gone out and expressed yourself, you are automatically a hero of that community rather than the people at large. So that is essentially what we see. And at the same point, once you have had a following, it is very easy for your kin or your family to come in, because that following is easily transferred to you regardless of your, your expertise or your knowledge of politics, so to say. And at the same point, political parties also subscribe to this kind of political lineage. So I think it's very difficult at the same point.
You're putting the onus on the voters, saying that
Not
the voters tend to vote for, because they've seen the father perform, they will
the whole
necessarily go for the son or the daughter.
We are in a democracy. People have the right to vote. They can choose whoever they want. The electorate or the people that get elected are the very representation of the people at large. So let's get this clear. The people that are in the parliament are a manifestation of Indian people. That's the kind of people they want up there. You cannot go, you can't sort of say that, wo log ekdam galat hai aur hame kuch aur chahiye. Most people in this room, we are very well educated, we speak English, we have a particular set of people in mind, but let's not forget we are a minority, You probably constitute teeny weeny bit in this grand nation. And when it comes to people at large, they're voting for the people you see in parliament and for the policies that are being made. And sometimes those policies can go wrong, and you can see a chunk of people sort of getting together. For example, let's say I'm a BSP MP. When the SC/ST Act was curbed by the court, there was a huge uprising, or rather not an uprising, but sort of a movement against reinstating the powers of SC/ST Act. Now, it called for many Bharat Bandhs, and there was a huge political loss for the ruling party if they didn't heed to those demands. So what you see the parliament acting and changing, but at the end of the day, it was a Dalit movement. It wasn't a pan-India movement. Currently also CAA or NRC or whatever, I feel at the same point it gets limited. It represents sometimes very small segments of society, and it hasn't yet taken, the kind of space that most people in this room would want it to take.
Nivedith, you want to say something?
Sorry, but I want to be an idealist at this point of time. I am. I haven't been elected to parliament. I'm not an MLA. I am not an MP. When we're talking about the youth in politics and the youth's future role in politics, I want to believe it is about those of us who have been educated, who have the best interests of our country at heart, those of us who've seen what's happening in other parts of the world, bringing development to our country. That's the way I see it, right? That is the reason why, even though, yes, dynasty today is a bad word, I'm a third generation supposed politician. My grandparents were in the freedom struggle. My mother was an MP, but that's not my fault, right? But my point is that I have worked my way up. So to use dynasty as a word where, youth and dynasty, it all just gets linked together and all becomes a bad thing. I have worked in the Youth Congress, I have worked as a secretary in the main party, I have worked as a general, but the point is, I believe it is about development. Politics is a lot of luck, which you will also agree with, but the core of politics, as far as I am concerned, getting into the system, I don't want to see it as caste, I don't want to see it as religion, I want to see it as how in our country we can bring younger people out and we can focus that energy in whichever party that they choose and whichever party they feel best they identify with, but to bring development to our country at the end of the day. Right. Because otherwise, how is there going to be change? If the youth today start talking about, if those who are in the age group of 18, as soon as they start voting, start talking about caste, religion, and all of that, then how is anything ever going to change?
But
it's the way I look at it. That's my point of view.
I want to ask you then, are the young leaders in changing the template? Because you're still reconstructing the past, you're still talking about the return of the Mughal Raj and all the statements that have been made. You're not doing any different politics. Are young leaders bringing new politics into the system?
Firstly, I would want to state, Palki, that my father is a retired government servant. Our family, my mother, father, they live on the pension that my father gets. When I was declared as a candidate for the Bangalore South constituency, I had all of 15 lakh rupees in my account. I won primarily because my party identified me, gave me an opportunity, and made sure that there was sufficient political infrastructure in place to ensure that I win this election. This, if it is not changed, if this is not giving scope opportunities for young people with modest, non-political
But you're still
backgrounds.
the
I don't know
exception.
what it
You're
is.
still the exception in the system.
Exceptions, these exceptions are happening only in the Bharatiya Janata Party, and therefore, this must increase. This must increase. I wouldn't want to give an apology saying that the Indian electorate has voted so and so because they have voted. They have we have to accept the only leaders. I mean, I agree to an extent that the choices are limited, but there are systemic problems, Palki, and that I would want to address. The first one is politics in India is extremely expensive. As long as Indian political system, especially our electoral system, is not made affordable to the common people, no common youngster, including someone like me, I will tell you, I was working day and night in my party.
What is your party doing to make elections less expensive?
We will come there. We will get there. I will address that. I want to first. No. We will. The first thing that the party has done is to have candidates like me who can get elected without spending a lot of money, and that itself is a big thing that the party has done to ensure electoral reforms are there in the first place. Let's get back to the issue in hand. I'm sure Nivedith, Ritesh, others also would agree. As long as politics becomes extremely expensive, people can't address. Two, the whole quadrum of caste, the party lobbies. So generally what happens is the one who inherits the father's wealth is also inheriting the father's political legacy. So that is something that we must address as a core issue. Two, you made an issue of, you brought the Mughal Raj comment up. I would want to disagree with Nivedith here. Why should young Indians, young political leaders not address issues of religious divisiveness in Indian politics?
That's not the question.
Why should we
The
not?
question is
If it is a reality happening in Indian political scenario, as young people with all the more conviction at our command, we must be the ones to head on address those issues and ensure that such divisive politics will not take place.
I never said you should not.
And one other thing that you were asking, what have we as young people brought to the table? 2014 and 2019 mark watershed years in India's political history because a great number of young people came of age to vote. And a result of that, I would call, are the problem-solving generation of India. 70 years ago, we created a problem because of 370. Last 70 years, no generation had leadership and the kind of political capital outside to solve those issues. Our generation gave the political capital to the government today to ensure that long pending civilizational problems of India are addressed, and we are a problem-solving young generation of India, and that is what we have brought to the table today, Palki.
I think we're mixing up issues a bit, if I may. My simple question is that the same politics was being done in 1950, the same politics was being done in 1980, the same politics is being done in 2020. What new are you offering to the youth of this country? Do the youth care so much about...
No, you're wrong when you say the same politics was being done in 50, 80, 70, 80. Can I after that?
Yeah.
I'll tell you why we are not following the same path. In 1950, we should not have conceded to Article 370. We did it that day, and today we have recorrected the path, and therefore we have taken a different path. We are not following the same
exactly
politics.
My point.
In 1970, when China realized in 1978 that they wanted to create a new economic order and liberalize the economy, we were still singing socialism, fairy tale socialism in our political history and our political discourse. Today the situation is changed. We are not doing the same politics of 1970s.
My thing is that a young person on the street will say, okay, Nehru was wrong. Okay, we shouldn't have conceded. Okay, if Sardar Patel, had he been the Prime Minister of India, this country would have been better. But you cannot rewrite history.
We
These are
can't.
perceived wrongs of the past. Talk about the future. Are you talking about jobs? Are you talking about the issues that people really care about? That's exactly what I'm saying. That you're not bringing a new discourse to the table. You are going back to history. You're reconstructing the past, and you're only talking about things which are, they're done, they're over.
Sorry,
talk about
Palki, they are
tomorrow.
not done and over. We are ensuring that they are done and over. These were festering wounds which were kept alive. These were festering wounds that were kept alive, and we are trying to solve them. Point one.
Can I just?
Yeah, please, Ritesh, I'll come back.
You know, I think the issue on jobs, I think every party is addressing that. So the fact that you're saying that, you know, youth leaders are not addressing it, just go out and look on the street, and, you know, mostly all the youth leaders are talking about it. We, for once, talk about it in the parliament all the time. Now, the second thing about why religion and caste hasn't changed, tell me, I mean, you look at socially, have Dalits got the fair share of their jobs? No. Why won't we talk about caste? Have most backwards, have they got their fair share of jobs? You go look at a Nishad Biradri, you go look at a Kahar, Kohar, Lohar, Badhai, you go look at their situation. Is it, who have benefited from the reservation so far? It's, you know, two particular castes which sometimes the court likes to call it the creamy layer. Those issues can't be addressed when you look at a political discourse. Why in UP, when the BJP sort of stitched up a coalition, they joined in the Nishad party, they took in the Rajbhar party, and they talked about taking in Anupriya Patel, who's representing the Kurmis, and there you go. They have a solid coalition there, and they win maximum number of seats in Uttar Pradesh. Why? Because ultimately caste does matter. Politics is about stitching up a narrative, and then based on that narrative, you stitch up coalitions. And in this country, let's face it, we are divided. You know, Baba Sahib Ambedkar very famously said that we have so many castes, so many communities, so many languages, so many different kinds of people. We can't be one nation. We are many nations at the same point. So in order to come into power as a political party, you need to stitch all of those narratives. And how do you stitch it? When you talk about their communities, when you talk about their identities, and you bring those identities together.
You need to do more than talk about that.
Yeah,
you mentioned jobs. There are no jobs. The figures speak for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, that the government has to answer. I mean, I'm with you on that, you know. I'm with you on that.
The point is,
Can we come back on that?
I'm going back to, first of all, Tejasvi, I never said, what I said is that development should be all-encompassing. I didn't say that should be divided by caste and, yeah. The point is that on one hand, we're talking of a many trillion dollar economy, and I'm going back again to just a simple figure, right? 100 million young people in our country over the next 10 years are going to need jobs, which means, to put things in perspective, that you need to basically educate these people. You're going to need 1,000 universities, 50,000 colleges. Who is talking about that? What is going to happen with where all these young people essentially are basically uneducated, or they're unemployed, or they're unemployable, right? So the point I was trying to make when it went down to the caste spin was that what are we doing as a nation and as the party in power? Tejasvi will explain more what the Skill India program is, how these millions and millions of young Indians are going to be skilled, and how they are going to help in nation building. Yes, I agree with a little bit of what Ritesh is saying. At the end of the day, when you go down to the grassroots level, there will be caste politics, there will be all of that. But if we focus, if you're talking about youth and we want to, as a panel over here or as a people, change the discourse, talk about a new India, talk about what the future holds for our children in this country and what the younger generation wants, if we are not ready to talk beyond caste even after we've gotten elected, then there's a problem in the system. That's the way I see it. Again, maybe because I'm the only one on the panel who's outside the system. And I can see it because looking in, I believe it's more than that. And I believe it needs to be more than that. And I believe that's what our founding fathers put together in the Constitution, which today, of course, is a different debate altogether. And every debate over the last 2 days has come down to that topic.
Right.
So where is it going? So I'd like to hear, if you can explain to me what Skill India and what the unemployed and where they're going to go, because that is the problem.
Sure, and I will also rephrase the question on the matter of history. I believe it is important. History is very important for perspective, but you cannot be consumed by history. As for what the young people feel, and you feel that you're raising the issues that young Indians really care about, let me quote to you the findings of a survey ahead of the Lok Sabha election last year from 12 states. It found that political parties are the most distrusted political institutions in this country. They have a negative trust rate of minus 55%. I'm sure you've heard about this. The army, on the other hand, is more trusted with an effective trust rate of 88%. The courts, even with our delayed legal justice system, have a trust rate of 60%. What are you, as a young politician, doing to bridge this trust deficit?
I agree that as a system, the political system, especially the political executive, the legislature, we as an institution must do more to gain more credibility, integrity among young people. Having said that, despite those findings in the survey, an overwhelming majority of young Indians came out and participated in the largest democratic exercise in the history of humankind, which shows that they still repose faith in India's democratic process and young people are engaged, which is quite encouraging. But also coming back to the what Ritesh and Nivedith mentioned here, I was wondering, I'm left wondering what all of you were doing when the finance minister made her 2.5-hour long budget speech. You were in Parliament, Ritesh, and I'm surprised you didn't hear her speak on Skill India. You didn't hear her speak on the number of more than 5.5 crore mudra loans that have been disbursed to create entrepreneurship in the country. More than 19 million people who are now self-help groups which are giving, ensuring job creation in different parts of the country. And I have, in the budget, the highest allocation ever in the history of independent India is made in this year's budget for education. And if editors of a few newspapers want to keep all of their attention on CAA and not focus on other issues, it's not my problem. We have take the speech of the president that he delivered to the parliament. The entire speech, which is for 58 pages, lays down what the government is doing. The government is speaking of quantum computing. The government is speaking of artificial intelligence. The government is speaking of ensuring new age technologies are utilized even in agrotech. For the first time, an allocation is made to incubate startups, give them funds of funds. All of these things are found mentioned in the budget.
Why don't surveys and studies paint the positive picture?
Not just that. Palki, not just that.
Are you saying that the government's efforts, which are many, according to you, not bearing fruit?
Let's come to basic figures. In 2009, among the biggest economies in the world, we were at 12th position. Today, in 2019, 2020, 10 years thereafter, we are the 5th largest economy. Did we grow without creating jobs in the country?
You know,
I mean, these are questions that must be answered.
Tejasvi, I'm sorry, you know, like
even the EPFO data
should look at your own government's jobs data.
is increasing every single day.
45-year low.
Even the recent EPFO data is the highest in the last 12 years. Please go back, check, verify, and come back if I'm wrong.
I will do
Tejasvi, I mean, thanks for pointing out the budget. And I just hate to burst your bubble, brother. I love you a lot. But, you know, at the same point, the government, if you look at its tax receipts, you can paint a huge picture. That's fine. It's the beginning of 2020 budget. By the end of it, things are going to change. People here especially, and when you talk of the youth, you know, this is what you should be posting the question to the rest of the youth. How many people actually look into the budget? You know, the budget receipts are up till now, until December, they're only 44% of what the revised estimate has said. So that's the kind of money that the government is only receiving at the moment, you know. 2/3 of the budget receipts are still pending. So they're saying it's going to come up in 3 months. Is that possible? No. Essentially, you look at Manrega allocations that have gone down in real terms. You know, last year it was allocated at 61,000 crores. It still remains at that. Something that was supposed to push up consumer demand, maybe employ more people, there's not enough money there. Quantum, I mean, you're talking about Industry 4.0, great, we love to hear about it. Good things should happen. Obviously, we should be a leader in that, no doubt. 8,000 crores have been allocated to that, but at the same point, Do you think there are enough, you just look at what our students who actually go out for scholarships, let's say, you can look at a scholarship from Stanford. Can you compare an Indian PhD student who's getting a scholarship here to one that a research student in Stanford is getting? No. So you can say, yeah, we allocated 8,000 crores for Industry 4.0, but that 8,000 crores is not going to make a difference, and we don't even know where it's going to be spent. There's no proper allocation to it in terms of explaining where that money is going. And as far as universities and everything that you're mentioning, that it's the largest budget, it's still very low. I mean, we need more money for educating our own youth, and the figures that will terrify you. In primary schools, we have, I think it is over 11 lakh teachers that need across the country. In UP alone, there is about 4 lakh teachers in primary school. More than 2 lakh jobs in higher education are still not filled. I mean, these are the mind-boggling figures when you look at the youth, the challenges facing them. These are the big challenges facing them. Now, let me tell you, it's very easy to point fingers at politicians. Yes, we have been elected. Let's not forget, people only elected 12% of the people in the parliament today are below the age of 40. So more people believe not in youth leaders. Maybe more younger people are voting, but they're voting increasingly for older people. Now, at the same point, is our youth aware of the challenges they are facing today? We can talk about jobs, hard 45-year low. How many youth have come out on the street for it? Together. You have the guys that have 68,000 jobs in UP for primary teachers who did not get their jobs. They've given their exams, but they still haven't been taken in by the government, or their cases are pending. They protest in one group. You have some other group that will be talking about, the Gram Sevak's job. They will protest in a separate group. You don't see a coming together of this youth and, holding the government responsible.
You can't put the onus on the youth.
I think,
you can't say, why are you not
I think-
protesting about jobs? If you don't protest about
Ritesh
jobs,
made a very
we'll not
good
give you
point
jobs.
here.
If you protest about CA, we'll try to address CA.
I think ultimately this is what, and this I can speak from first-hand experience, both in the assembly and in the parliament. The issues on the ground. For example, if a loan waiver is central stage, you see a loan waiver. If jobs was coming, if there was a huge movement, huge pressure on the government, you would see expenditure going up in the budget. You don't really see that.
I agree with this, that
You don't
young
really
people
see
should
that.
put
So
pressure on
I
the government,
think-
only then will jobs be created.
No.
I think there should be.
I agree with
I think there should be pressure on the government for the right issues, and if this is a bigger issue, then there should be more pressure on it, and people should come together. A lot of the times,
You're saying the youth are raising the wrong issues?
a lot of the times, what I feel is that the youth, although might know of the right issues, but they're not united enough across the board. And that's what needs to happen. And that's where more youth leaders need to come out and find and chalk out a path that is sort of bringing in more and more younger people together for singular causes, not being divisive on various issues and therefore diluting their message to the government.
Just to build on what Ritesh said, I think he made a very nuanced observation where he said, why are young people not coming out in hordes and a mass movement why is a mass movement not being built demanding jobs? It's precisely because there is job creation happening. That's precisely the point. If there was no job creation of that kind, there would have been social unrest. Let us trust the intelligence of the young common Indian. He knows what issues to be fighting
You
for.
should too.
And of course we do.
Trust the intelligence.
Is why I'm telling you that because there is, a great number of job creation happening, we have to do better. That doesn't mean that job creation is not happening. That was a very nuanced
Nivedith,
observation
Alva,
that
what were you
Ritesh did.
doing when the budget speech was being read
Sorry,
out?
that was just mind-blowing, okay? I mean, I've lost my chain of thought. Sorry. Palki, I think you should question us. Go ahead.
No, but
Sorry, just
listen, at
lost
the
me
same
completely there. Yeah.
no, at the same point, you know, the other issues that sort of come out again with the jobs, this thing. Across the board, if you look at the social welfare schemes that are going out to the people, and which is a good thing. I think it's important that we support the people, but at the same point, it sort of provides a comfort zone for, again, these movements to, one, lack of information, two, there is a comfort zone where these social schemes sort of come into place, and they put up a buffer also. So, again, when talking about youth issues and bringing it out and hoping that the youth is going to unite behind it, we need to be aware that, you know, again, things like jobs, education, higher education, which is going to get them to better jobs, those should be the things that should be center stage, and they need to be brought up.
Right.
Now, again, as youth leaders, we are constantly, I mean, you know, we often constantly raise it in the parliament, and it's put up inside the house, and we hope that those things go to the government and they provide those changes. But really, lately, we haven't seen that. If you look at, again, I come back to the expenditure, because that is what is going to sort of increase consumer demand. There's very little that has been done on that, and I don't think that's going to have an impact on jobs, so to say, in the
We
near
have less
future.
than 5 minutes left for us to talk before we throw it to the audience here, so I want to cover some other subjects as well. You said only 12% of this house has young leaders. And
Below 40.
Yes.
12% is below 40.
Yes, so the youth is not voting for young leaders, but at the same time we have this culture, political culture of leaders being leaders for life, from a Karunanidhi to a Jyoti Basu to a Jayalalitha. And when there are efforts made, like in the BJP, to put certain people in the Margdarshak Mandal, then it is being seen as power grab or removing the people who've done enough work for the party for another set of people to hold the reins. Do you think that there should be a concept of retirement for the young to find their legitimate place in politics?
Yeah, 100%. Why shouldn't they be? I agree completely. Also, I think the division comes essentially, Tejasvi, correct me if I'm wrong, is that there are two types of politicians, right? There are politicians who face direct election, and there are politicians who basically go to the upper house, right? So then it's two different things. So someone who faces direct election, I've seen, know enough people, and I've seen enough of the system. No, you're on your feet 24 hours a day. There's no running away from anything. And there will come a time where if you stop doing that, or if you're not capable of keeping up, automatically you will be kicked out. So there's no question of being, you can't balance it all. Whereas if you're in the upper house or in other parts of it where it's a more senior role, it is. But the youth today, anyone you speak to when you go out, I spend a lot of time in rural areas. The first question, they say, why don't politicians retire? That's the first thing they ask you, and it's like, you have taken the decision to not let people retire or something, and they'll ask you, say, why? Why aren't people retiring? And they point fingers and take names and say, why not? And so definitely with the changing demographic, my take is obviously no political party is going to say someone should retire. But I think that the electorate today and the youth out there
But you have to give the electorate a choice. Tamil Nadu saw the generational change when the new generation supposedly was in their 60s.
Yeah, but I'm saying don't look at the top of a party, right? Look at the younger people coming in, the numbers, the fresher faces coming in, I'm saying don't just look at parliament or look at the state assembly, look at it from all the way from the panchayat level. Right?
So by the time they reach the parliament,
no, I'm saying at
also
every
in their
level
60s.
there are new, fresher, younger people coming in. Everybody's not aspiring for parliament. Everybody's not aspiring to be an MLA. People are aspiring because that is the Panchayati Raj system of our country, right? That is the other thing. We as a people, the urban-rural divide today in our country is so great that those in urban areas have no clue what's going on in rural areas and they don't care. Because I'm happy, people are happy here in their cushy, city existence, getting their monthly salary, worried about things like EMIs and, which car to buy and what watch to wear. They have no clue how people need to struggle in rural areas to make ends meet. the fish which someone eats in a restaurant, the kind of hard work which goes into it in Karwar and how the guy goes out to sea, is there for days on end to send that catch back, how it reaches the city, no one knows, because that is what we have become as a people, right? So that's a larger existential question, but you know, it needs to be addressed at some point of time.
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought this up because Tejasvi, the Indian youth is not a monolith. They have different backgrounds, different compulsions, different challenges. So what do you think should be done to mainstream youth from, say, conflict zones to take a more active political role?
I don't understand why you are basing this question on the presumption that young people are already not taking an active role. On that, I have a fundamental objection to. I think young people, more than before, are taking a very keen interest in politics. Even on Instagram, which is the most non-political platform there is, followed by the post-90 millennial generation, you find very active political comments, political memes. People are engaged politically. Like you very rightly mentioned, not everybody is aspiring to be a member of parliament or run for office, because it's a different ball game altogether. But in terms of engagement, I think a lot of young people are engaging with the political discourse, and it's a very healthy thing. Insofar as the numbers, I'll also tell you, Palki, today we are a young country, and the next 10 years, I'm sure we will see a much younger parliament. Ritesh and I, there's so many young people today in parliament compared to what it was earlier. In the same way, I can give it to you in writing. 2024 will bring more number of young people in the parliament, and this trend is going to continue. And like you very rightly mentioned again, that in different tiers of the government, there are young people across all political parties, aspiring for electoral offices, for panchayats, for Jilla panchayats, MLAs, all of them. If you look at the political cadre in general also, it's mostly comprised of young people today. So in terms of engagement, we wouldn't be here if young people were not actively interested in politics. So they are very politically engaged.
I think on that optimistic note, let's throw it open to the floor.